luck. Like 2 or 3 minutes. So there are three people watching the stream right now.
One of them's me.
Oh, what are we doing?
Well, at least we've got one straight. Oh, yeah. What you doing? Like the river, that would be one.
Tell me how I do. I am. I'm Gilbert Garcia. Say it again. I'm from Houston, but I've lived here since 1995. So I'm not Houston. Last week was, and I was educated at East, and then I moved back to Texas. I didn't get to Corpus, but I went to Houston. When I grew up, Houston was the big city. So this is where we would vacation at Astro. Yeah, you know, we'd go to Astro and we'd stay at that hotel right across the thing. It was called the Astrodome. And you know, you take the tram across the way. That was our big vacation, and we loved it. I think there's still 19. Well, I was trying to be a little bit. Not incognito. I mean, a little bit considerate. It's what they do. It's one. They do a lot of
There you go, there we go.
He says he does a lot of
Oh my, that's loud. I'll hold it further away from my face. Howdy, everybody. So it's about 6:08, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Just so folks are aware, we are live streaming on YouTube right now and I think a couple other platforms. So you can go to YouTube and go to the Equality Texas page to see a recording that this app is back. So if there are candidate responses that you didn't hear or you want more information about, you can always look at the video after the fact. But in the interest of everybody's time, we're going to get started. My name is Brad Pritchett. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the field director for Equality Texas. I'm native Houstonian and very excited to have some candidates in the room tonight to talk about their plans for the mayor's office, should they be elected.
Hey, Brad. So my name is Devin Stiles. I'm the executive director of Black Trans Women's Inc. I am also a Houstonian. I am the host of Marsha's Plate podcast, and I am so excited to be here to talk to our potential new mayors.
Y'all should go and listen to Marsha's Plate, by the way. It's really good. So tonight's forum is brought to you by a group of organizations, Equality Texas, the Trans Education Network of Texas, the Mahogany Project, and Trans and Gender for Houston. Just so you know, the format for the evening, we don't do mayoral forums where we set everybody at a table because people tend to talk over each other and I think it's harder for us to get direct answers from folks. So we like it to be a little bit more intimate, a little more one-on-one. So the format for tonight is we're going to have one candidate on a love seat for two. Up here with us this evening, all the candidates are going to get the same questions with the exception of one question, which is specific to that candidate. So it may be a question about their record or their opinions, but everybody will get one individualized question. Beyond that, everybody's going to get the same questions. So it will feel a little repetitive for folks, but we're also going to try to change it up about midway through the program. Diamond and I are going to take a break, and we're going to welcome two other moderators to come up and take it over from there until the end. So you'll get some new faces and some voices that maybe aren't as taxing as mine. So the first candidate we have this evening, and we'll let him introduce himself and tell us a little more about himself when he comes up, is Gilbert Garcia. So if you'd like to come on up. So we're going to have about 15 minutes with each candidate. That's for you. So we're going to have a little timer running here. So we'll try to keep us on time. Every candidate's going to get the same amount of time. And I'm going to hand off to Diamond.
Yes. So tell us who you are and why you believe you are the best person to represent the city of Houston as our next mayor.
Well, thank you very much. So I'm going to stand. Is that okay? Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. So my name is Gilbert Garcia, and I'm a native Texan. I'm from Corpus Christi. My grandfather's way out of poverty was the Marine Corps. My father's way to the middle class was through real estate. I'm a first-generation college. I'm a product of public schools. My first big break is I went to Yale University. That really changed my life and opened up my eyes to many new things. In fact, my first real LGBTQ experience was at Yale, and I'll never forget it. It was in 1983, and it was during the Glad Week and the whole Glad Week celebrations. And I'll never forget that we had the Life and Times of Harvey Milk as a movie, and it was very impactful on my life. And then, of course, they asked me, I was president of the College Democrats. They asked me to speak at the rally, and I certainly did. That was my first time of activism for the LGBTQ community back in 1983. And then I had a summer internship on Wall Street through a program that puts minority youth as summer interns on Wall Street. Had I not received that hand up, I would have never been in this industry that I'm in now, because my family don't have retirement, they didn't go to college, they didn't have much. But they had one thing, which is the desire to give their kids a better education. So I worked on Wall Street approximately 5, 6 years, and then I returned to Texas. I didn't get to Corpus, but I got to the big city, which is Houston. When you're from Corpus Christi, Houston is the big city. This is where we would spend our vacations. We'd go to Astroworld. This was the big city. And so I came to Houston. I started a money management firm, and I've been managing money ever since. And I'm very proud to report that when I joined our firm that I'm at now, and I'm now the managing partner, we were 200 million. I joined 20 years ago. And now I'm very happy to report that we now manage 21 billion. So 200 million to 21 billion. And we did it the right way, which is, number one, we are primarily homegrown talent. I'm the only Ivy Leaguer. Most of the people from my firm are from U of H or TSU. The other thing is 75% of our team are women and 70% are Black or Latino. So we are proof positive that you can have women and you can have people of color and you can do great things and be excellent in your field. And so I'm very proud of that. Along the way, I've done other things. I have been active with my kids, primarily because when I grew up, my father worked all the time. Just pull the plug when you think, Gilbert, that's enough. My father worked all the time. And so he really wasn't there for me or for my siblings. And so I wanted to break that mold. And so I've been active with my kids. I have coached 40 seasons of youth soccer. I have been the announcer at all the track meets. I have been Bolt the Colt, where I dress up as a horse, I'm the mascot. I've done all those things to be with my kids, to break the mold. And I learned in life that the one thing that my father really regretted is he wasn't there to experience those things with us. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to experience those things with my kids. In the interest of fairness and making sure I answer the questions, I have much to say, if we get to it, about Metro and my experience as chairman of Metro, the things that we did. I served on 2 pension boards, both the city of Houston and in Dallas. And I've served on many other boards, commissions, you name it, I've probably done it. And the one thing I want you to take away, in addition to that I'm a regular person, is that I've been a leader all my life. I've been in the private sector, and I just think it's time for something different. If you look at the city, we've had sort of the same old, same old. And in my opinion, and if you disagree, respectfully, we'll agree to disagree, I think the city's heading in the wrong direction. And I think it's time for something different. There we go. That was the hook.
Yes. There's no classy way to do that. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, but we want to get into the bulk of our questions. And you'll have a chance to
Yes.
close at the end as well. So if there's other stuff you want to say. Let's jump into some questions. The questions tonight were created by our steering committee and also community submitted questions. So if you submitted a question, thank you. We'll try to get to as many as we can. The city of Houston has a strong mayor form of government, meaning that the mayor is the most powerful political actor in the city. There are studies that show us that actions that begin at the local level have the potential to influence other surrounding jurisdictions and can translate to changes at the state and federal level in something called a snowball effect. So municipalities that pass policies to better serve LGBTQ+ community members can serve as case studies for other policymakers. Do you have any special initiatives that you plan to propose to prioritize the transgender and LGBTQ+ community here in Houston?
Sure. I don't have any specific plans that I can mention now, other than I know it's a priority. There are members of my family that are members of the LGBTQ community. I understand it very well. I just mentioned to someone that one of my nephews is in the middle of transitioning. And some of my siblings, as the Hispanics that we are and Catholic that we are, may not be as open-minded as I might be, and I love them. But at the end of the day, they were critical of the transition. And I said to them, look at this picture of her. I said, she's smiling. She's middle of transitioning. I said, do you remember the last time you saw him smile? And the answer is they couldn't think of a time. So at the end of the day, I totally get it. And I think that's the most important thing of all. I'll set a strong tone at the top, just like I've done at my firm, just like I've done in other things. That's what I do as mayor of the city of Houston. You mentioned a couple of other things, and hopefully we'll get to it. But if not, I'll just briefly say that there's a referendum item. There are two that are very important. One of them relates to the power of the mayor to allow city council members, 3 of them have something on the agenda. I 100% support that. I'm happy to tell you why. The other thing relates to looking at HGAC, which is a regional authority that gets money for flooding and other things. I'm very much in favor of redesigning that board to get more money for Houston. So to the extent that that's part of the question, I'm all for both of those items.
So there are cities around, all the cities around the country have a budget, and they allocate money towards housing, they allocate money towards the health department. There are major cities around the United States that specifically allocate resources to the budget for LGBT programs and resources. For example, the city of Philadelphia does $2 million. The city of New York does 2.8. San Francisco does a whopping 5.4 million. How will you use your power to help address the health and vitality of transgender and LGBTQ residents programs here in Houston in your city budget proposal?
First, I'm going to always tell it like it is. There are going to be very tough choices on some of the future budgets of this city, period. And if mayors tell you they're going to do this and be this mayor and that mayor and spend a bunch of money, I don't see how they can possibly do it. And so I'm not going to say I'm going to spend all this kind of money because it's not there. And the priority is, number one, we all believe in human rights and human dignity. I think a mayor can set a very strong tone at the top and really do the best thing for the LGBTQ community by making sure that no single department is doing anything that is against being open and fair, transparent, and providing opportunity, jobs, contracts for the community. I think that's probably the best thing that the mayor can do to really create social change and to create more economic wealth within the community, because that's the key. It's very similar to the Hispanic community, where we also have a dramatic underrepresentation and wealth and all the other things that you think of. But it's going to be very challenging because the priorities are going to be clearly public safety. Nobody feels safe anymore. And that's not unique to me. Everyone will probably talk about it. It's the number one priority. The other are some of the city services are significantly lacking. And I'm not talking roads. I'm talking things like trash pickup. And that's without even implementing the will of the voters that we spoke up loudly for to implement pay parity for the firefighters. So I just want to be as transparent as I possibly can.
Great, thank you. So the LGBTQ plus Victory Fund helps elect openly LGBTQ candidates to public office. Their theory of change is that when members of our community are elected, they help push progressive policies. We've seen it play out across the country as more than 300 openly LGBTQ candidates were elected in the last election cycle. Many of those were in Texas. And the LGBTQ Victory Institute has a political appointments project that connects folks to boards, commissions, and programs within government. When our community has a seat at the table, we are able to drive conversations and advance policies that enhance quality of life for everyone, not just LGBTQ people. Are there any LGBTQ plus folks that you identified to potentially serve in your administration to address issues facing the community, particularly transgender and gender expansive folks?
Sure. If you can, I'm going to expand that slightly, which is I have probably been one of the single biggest donors to the Victory Fund for the last several years. I have done fundraisers for everyone from Steve Kirkland to Kim Ogg to Anise Parker to Jolanda Jones, you name it. Nick Hellier, I've supported Nick. To the extent there are LGBT community leaders out there, I probably have either supported them with significant financial contributions or through the Victory Fund. And so I'm very proud of that because that's the only way we're going to create change is to get more members of the community elected at senior levels. I don't have necessarily anybody identified because one of the things that I cannot do or I've chosen not to do is I'm not going to cut deals. I'm not going to say, as mayor, if you support me, I'll make you this. I'm not going to do that. I don't think it's legal. There are people that might be doing that. I don't even think it's ethical. And so there are many, many good people in the LGBTQ community. I mean, I'm looking at Molly Cook right there. I would love to have Molly Cook involved in my administration, right? She's fantastic. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to say, I'll do this if you do that and make promises.
So I think that's amazing that you have supported candidates. But specifically, how have you engaged directly with the LGBTQ gender expansive community in Houston over the last 18 months? With the community.
I've been to caucus meetings. I have sponsored some of their meetings. I'm engaged in the community. Could I do more? Of course I could do more. I think I could do more in many different communities. But I think the most important thing I'll do as mayor is get the city on the right track because that will benefit everyone, including the LGBTQ community. And what do I mean by that? The housing director said that there's a culture of corruption in the housing department, and he was fired. And then, of course, the district attorney has raided the housing department. The FBI has raided the health department. Those things are not normal. There's clearly something wrong, and I don't know if there's malfeasance or not, but at the end of the day, I would audit both of those to get to the bottom of it. If there's malfeasance, let's clean it up. If there's not, well, let's make sure there's no more waste. Another one relates to the recent airport contract. That is one of the most biggest contracts, and they did it 4 times. That is not normal for a big procurement. I was chairman of Metro. A big procurement typically is 1 time, maybe you had something wrong, but doing it 4 times is very out of the ordinary. So I think one of the most important things to do is to really clean up the city and shake up City Hall. And I think that will create opportunities for many communities that have been left out of the success of the city.
So Equality Texas has been tracking more than 150 incidents targeting LGBTQ plus people across the state this year alone. Those are incidents of harassment, vandalism, assault motivated by anti-LGBTQ plus hate. Houston has one of the largest populations of trans people in the country, but the community is not often visible because they fear for safety and don't want to be targeted by extremists. So what would you say to these Houstonians who are fearful to be visible, and what efforts can the mayor of Houston make to ensure every resident of the city is able to live free from discrimination and feel safe?
First, it shouldn't be tolerated at all, period. There should be 0 tolerance for that. And again, I get it. And let me give you an example. The first time I was the recipient of being called something negative, and I'll just say it here, I apologize if it offends anyone, I was called a dirty Mexican. The first time I was called that, I was 6 years old. Imagine being 6 years old. And I didn't quite understand it. It was by a grown-up, it was my neighbor. And in my life, there have been other critical times where being a Latino was inhibited me for progress and other things. I couldn't take a young lady that I wanted to take to a dance because her parents wouldn't let her go out with a Mexican. Because it was, I mean, that's just, I totally get it. It cannot be tolerated. I'm very sensitive to it, and I would make sure there's zero tolerance, and I would do my best to let the community know that there's going to be a new, strong approach, and that they should feel comfortable wherever they are in the city of Houston.
I appreciate that. Zero tolerance. As the candidate joining us tonight, you're the only candidate who has never been elected to public office, and you have no standing record on LGBT equality to refer back to. Why should the LGBT voters trust you, trust that you're the best candidate to represent us as mayor?
Well, hopefully, the mere fact that I've experienced it in my own family, I have one that's transitioning, and I have one that's a member of the LGBTQ community. Number two, for the first time, I've let you know that my first time to speak out publicly for the community was in 1983. That was a very different time when not very many Hispanic Catholics were willing to speak out for the community, and I did in front of all my peers. So I've done it all of my life. But again, I also think you need to reflect on who has really said things and who has really delivered. If you look at Metro, when I was chairman of Metro, it was an agency that was troubled. There was no transparency. They couldn't pay their bills. There was questionable ethics. They had violated their own procurement rules by cutting up the street without identifying the money. The federal government pulled the plug on the full funding grant agreement to build the rail. And when I came in, it was a mess. All you gotta do is Google it. And we very methodically went by. We solved all the litigation. Many of those lawsuits, I sat in the mediation myself. We ended up tightening our belt buckle. We had a hiring freeze. We paid down all the debt. We ended up getting, am I talking too loud? Sorry about that. We ended up getting all the federal government money, and we ended up building rail from then on time and under budget. We redid the entire bus network for the first time in 100 years. Imagine that. We did all these things, put the check registry online for everyone to see where a single dollar of your taxpayer dollars is going. You don't have to FOIA Metro. It's all there. And so when you look at it, there's been very few candidates who can say they've done these things. And so my reply back is, I think if you're looking for a candidate that's going to be the same old and do things the same way, in my opinion, that's the definition of insanity. Doing things the same way and expecting a different result. I think it's exactly what we need is someone different that'll make the hard calls. I have no financial interest in any contracts in the city of Houston or Harris County that relate to any public entities. That includes HISD, that includes HCC, that includes them all, the pension funds. So I can make the hard calls without any outside pressure trying to influence me, and I want to end the pay-to-play practices that exist here in the city. Great.
So we are rolling up at the end of our time. I'm going to give you, no, you're good. You have the ability to give as much time to questions as you like. I'm going to put the timer on for 1 minute. If you want to give a 1 minute closing statement, wrap up your pitch. And when it bings, that's it. Yes.
Then I'll go fast. So number one, thank you for allowing me to be here. This center is very special to me because it does so many great things with addiction issues, counseling for families, counseling for children, and my own family has been a recipient of services here. And so this is a very hallowed ground and a hallowed facility. So I feel great and comfortable being here. I hope the one thing you take away from here is, at least you know I am well versed in the issues that I know, and then I'm willing to learn the things that I don't know. And I'm a normal person. I want to be known as a good husband, a great father to my kids, a great boss to the 40 employees that I represent, and all the other community service that I've done. Because I'm no different than any of you. I live the same things you do. Potholes, I don't feel safe. I can't believe I can't have clean water. All those things that we deserve better, I live too. And that's why I'm running for mayor. Because I'm very happy in my life, but I couldn't sit back and say, here I am, I've lived the American Houston dream. Is that my buzz? And I need to give back. Thank you, I'm Gilbert Garcia, I'm running for mayor.
Thank you very much. So we're going to take a 2-minute bathroom break. If anybody needs to go to the bathroom, this is your time to do it while we're reset. We've also got the candidates who are set up out in the lobby area. So if you want to go learn something about all the candidates, you can do that. But we'll be back here in 2 minutes to talk with our next guest. Thanks, y'all.
I had things for sure, so I thought, let me just go see this. It's always weird. Well, that's good.
Hello. So we're gonna move on to our next candidate. So we're gonna give people like a 2-minute warning to come back in and grab your seats. I'll move it closer so it's louder. Thank You. Great. Thanks, everybody. No.
Yes. So, Senator, tell us who you are and why you believe you are the best person to represent the city of Houston as our next mayor.
Well, I'm John Whitmire. I've been a public servant my entire adult life, having run as a U of H student in 1972. Successfully ran, went to Austin with Sophronia Thompson, then ran, group of great leaders. I specialize in constituent service because I was a young activist, ran for the legislature to make a difference. The lights were on in the community, I was there. In the mid-70s, I got familiar with the caucus. Actually, I was there when Anise, Ray Hill, and others put the caucus together in the first parade. And as we progressed the last several decades, the change in Austin to Republican leadership, I was a voice for equality on the Senate floor, challenging Republicans by, go back first when Phyllis Fry would come in the late 70s and couldn't get in anyone's office. My office, Mickey's, is the only one that would respect her with her issues. As it's gotten worse through the years, my office has been the base of operations for equality. We would talk with families. We would leave my office, go to the Senate floor, I'd read their letters, making the Republicans listen to their heartache and their alarm. I remember in the 80s with Jeff Wentworth, passed a constitutional amendment, prohibiting same-sex marriage. I was the voice challenging him to leave people alone that won't be left alone, live their lives. So I could go on and on, certainly locally on that constituent service. I would get calls from Jovan Lane on Labor Day weekend. I was out of town. A young gay teenager from Louisiana had run away from home because he was being punished for being out of the closet. Juvenile probation was about to put him on a plane, send him back to Louisiana. I intervened, kept him in Houston. He was adopted by Javon and Shelley, and maybe not adopted, but fostered. And we kept him in Houston. He enrolled in HISD. So I could go on and on the life experiences which I've taken to my public service. I'm looking forward to being mayor of Houston. If I'm fortunate to get there, to continue that activism, that being outspoken for equality at City Hall. I truly believe that we will never be as great a city as we can be without an equality ordinance. It's not only going to be a human rights issue, we've got to turn it into an economic issue. Something like the World Cup. When they're looking at our city, we need to go to allies in the selection committee and tell them that we're the only major city in Texas without an equality ordinance. I know how to do that. And quite frankly, it's that boldness and experience that can make such a difference. Thank you for having me here. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Senator. The city of Houston has a strong mayor form of government. It makes the mayor the most powerful political actor in the city. And we have studies that show that the actions that begin at a local level have the potential to influence other local jurisdictions and can translate to changes at the state and federal level in a phenomenon called the snowball effect. Municipalities that pass policies to better serve LGBTQ plus community members can serve as case studies for policymakers in other cities. Do you have any special initiatives that you plan to propose to prioritize the transgender and LGBTQ plus community?
Well, obviously, my staff will be very diverse and inclusive. If you look at my staff in Austin, it's certainly been represented by the LGBTQ plus community, not because that's what brought them to my office. We went for inclusion, and Chairman, General Counsel of Criminal Justice was part of the caucus. I could go on and on. It starts at the top. It takes someone at the top to have the boldness and the experience to make equality a high priority for the city. Not to criticize any existing office holders, but quite frankly, we don't have an ordinance. I know people committed to it years ago. During their administration, they would make it an issue. It's not an issue. It's not talked about around the council table. It should be, because you are elected folks that are not voicing your position at City Hall. Look at my record. These are not campaign promises. I have a strong record. In 1993, we were rewriting the penal code, and I decriminalized homosexual behavior in the state Senate version. One of the best speeches, I'm told, that's ever been given on the Senate floor. 1993. The world was different then. But I made the argument that it is discriminatory. It's used against employment. It's used against housing. And it's just wrong. We got it out of the Senate, couldn't get the House to take it up. Friends, look at the record. I've never abstained on a tough vote. I've been the voice of the transgender community on the Senate floor for the last 2 sessions. Session before last, when the Democratic caucus decided some would stay behind to keep an eye on the Republicans, others would Washington, the members of the State Affairs Committee, our allies, our friends on the Senate floor, the Democrats were in Washington. I'm not on State Affairs. Joan Huffman was chairing, but I was observing. And when she started cutting off transgender witnesses and their families, after 2 minutes, in the middle of their sentence, I joined the committee. I sat down. Probably not seldom ever done. I became a member as a walk-on to ask these families additional questions to give them more than the 2 minutes. That's what you call leadership. And I'm ready to bring it home closer to the problems.
So the city of Houston has a budget of $6.2 billion. How are you prepared to use your power to help address the health and vitality of trans people and the LGBT residents with programs that's specifically for us here in Houston within your city budget?
Well, first, you're not going to fix a problem in government if you don't admit you have one. This is not discussed at City Hall nearly as frequently as often as it should be. It starts at the top. So you have an agenda. You work the coalition bill, Equality Texas, the caucus. You work with the community. You not just do it at election time, you do it in between elections. So what we do, we sit down, working with the health department, affordable housing, and I can go on and on, services that need to be provided. We need a reentry program for those coming out of the prison system. A few years ago, working with Legacy Health, I provided the rainbow drugs and HIV care for members, parolees leaving the prison system. As we know, the discontinuation of that health care provision is detrimental. It can actually kill you in some circumstances. We work with Harris Health to have a continuation of the medication. I've worked and intervened in the prison system to protect transgender inmates. There's a lot that has been done quietly, respecting the privacy of all the families and those involved, and also to get results. If you don't have the experience and the boldness to get things done, I don't issue a press conference every time I do something to help someone. I go about getting the job done. We've had rallies at the Capitol where I would be the only elected official there. Equality needed a permit to do a protest last session. They needed it by 6 o'clock on Sunday. I'm called on Saturday by your leadership. We get busy and do it. I don't blink when I'm asked to do something on behalf of equality. Let's just get it done.
So we're about halfway through our time. The LGBTQ plus Victory Institute has a political appointments project that connects folks to boards, commissions, and other programs within government. When members of our community have a seat at the table, we're able to drive conversations about the community and advance policies that enhance quality of life for all people, not just LGBTQ plus folks. Are there any LGBTQ plus people that you've identified to potentially serve in your administration or on boards and commissions to address the issues facing the community, particularly any transgender and gender expansive people?
Well, I hate to start calling out names, but Lane Lewis should be working at City Hall in this administration. I was very involved in the election of the current mayor one of the requests I made a week after the election, we had a party chair that had done a great job, assisted in the campaign by kind of properly making it a partisan issue. And Lane should have been in the administration. I could go on and on. There's some makeups that I want to take care of. I could go on. Justin Wood was my general counsel in Austin. My general counsel, he worked in the Harris County DA's office, and I would be more than expecting Justin to come down. My administration would look like Houston. And you can't just have people that talk to you during the campaigns. You know, you've got to hold them accountable. In fact, if there's anything I would urge all of us to do, is have better scorecards, better accountability for not only local, but I would suggest even legislative representation in Austin and Congress. I will repeat, I've never abstained. I had tough votes this spring. I was already running for mayor. I knew that the eyes of Houston were on me. And quite frankly, Dr. Holtze put out a cartoon just Friday. That's fine. Sometimes you're known by who your enemies are. Dr. Holtze spread out on the internet a cartoon of Senator Whitmire with a sign, "Let the children decide their gender." Of course, I'm smart enough to know, ignore the guy, fool. But that's just the kind of boldness I have. I will not yield to hate.
I appreciate that you have an appreciation for accountability and you said scorecard because I think it's important for you to directly engage with us. So how have you directly engaged with the LGBTQ community in Houston over the past 18 months?
Last 18 months, I've been their voice on the Senate floor. My office is the Nerve Center. Quality Texas, worked out of being the senior member in the Senate. I have a rather large office, completely turned the upstairs section of my office into the Nerve Center to coordinate the appearance of families and the entire community that office. Plus, and certainly, let me tell you what, the hate is turned toward the transgender community. I've been to memorial services. I can remember 6 years ago, a candlelight vigil across the South Beach. It was a very moving experience. It was quite frankly, it helped shape and mold me. I go to memorial services. We had one for the person that was killed in Channelview at the police headquarters last year in the rain. I was the only elected official there. I try to show my support, not only with my voice in Austin, but my action. I get involved in people's personal issues where they need assistance. The young man I mentioned that was a runaway, but I could go into other examples. It's just who I am. I was taught at a very young age, you treat people the way you want to be treated, and it's amazing how well that works regardless of any persons you meet.
So Equality Texas has tracked more than 150 incidents targeting LGBTQ people this year alone. Those are incidents of discrimination, harassment, anti-LGBTQ hate protests. Here in Houston, we have one of the largest transgender populations in the country, but the community is often not visible because they fear for their safety and don't want to be targeted by these extremist forces. What would you say to these Houstonians who are fearful to be visible, and what efforts can the mayor of Houston make to ensure that every resident of our city is able to live free from discrimination, but mostly to feel safe in Houston?
I would say I share your concern, rightfully, because I've heard on the Senate floor, hey, I look at social media. We need a police department that's very sensitive. We need members of the caucus to actively be HPD officers. And let me just, again, go back and express how I've demonstrated my concern. We passed the hate crimes bill in '96. The first attempt, George Bush, his allies, he was the governor, he was getting ready to run for president. We couldn't pass a hate crimes bill, which we all knew we needed, so well documented. Hate crimes against so many of society, so many groups of society. They would not allow us to pass it on the Senate floor, the sexual orientation. So when they tried to run it, Senator Ellis, myself, the entire Democratic delegation took time slots to filibuster, to block it. They finally saw we had the votes to block that version. And then Bush became president, we came back and included sexual orientation. Our hate crime bill has sexual orientation in it because of the effort of myself and other colleagues. That's what you do. You try to have statutes, you enhance the penalties, but it's education. Let me just tell you, there's so much more we can do to educate the general public. A lot of the hate is just pure hate, and then a lot of it's ignorance. And I think I would challenge all of us. That's what you can do in your administration. You can do that by profiling. Bill Fry, retired judge, ought to be brought out of retirement. I have people that work for the city in different departments calling me saying, if you're elected, we will return to city service. Phyllis Fry is not only an icon in the transgender community, she's a personal friend. She and her wife regularly visit with me. She's an advisor, and she ought to be advising all of Houston and educating them. That's the only way we're going to get there, is to overcome hate and ignorance by being activists and taking it to them.
So in 2023, the state legislature passed Senate Bill 17, which bans diversity, equity, and inclusion offices, programs, and trainings at Texas public universities. As a person who stands at the intersection of multiple identities, and myself, I think that's devastating. One of the effects of the bills is that the LGBT resource centers across multiple schools, University of Houston, the Pride Center of Texas Southern University, which is a mainstay there, they're on the chopping block. Recently, the Rice Queer Resource Center extended an open invitation to all Houston college students to utilize their resources since they're a privately funded university, they avoid the impact of SB 17. How will you use the resources of the mayor's office to assist in creating supportive system for queer students who no longer have them at public universities here in Houston?
You use the mayor's office for leverage. You let Renew Couture know that the University of Houston has made a huge mistake, which I will do. She hasn't been in town since, she didn't announce it. So you've got to take it to the administration, you have to talk to the regions, and you have to organize the community. It's obviously a step backwards. We fought it as hard as we could in Austin. Let me just tell you how frustrating it is. And I had a real serious decision to make. Could I be more effective in Austin, or could I be more effective in Houston? I love serving in the Senate, but I love Houston more. I'm frustrated in Austin. There are 19 Republicans in the state Senate, 12 Democrats. So the 12 Democrats organized, we're smarter than they are, we care more about and have more passion about human rights than the other side. They're just playing politics. We're speaking from our heart and soul. We make a strong stand, but at the end of the day, on that particular issue, they had the vote. So I want to come back to Houston and complete so much of the adversarial role that I had in Austin. I can get more done here. If you give me an opportunity to use my experience and contacts and work in the business community. I mentioned education a while ago. Guess who needs educating more than anyone? The Houston corporate community. You've got to let them know. I go to the parade and certainly Shell, Chase, everybody is represented. That's quite frankly not the way it started 20, 30 years ago. So now there is at least representation in corporate Houston in the Great Pride Parade. But it's not at their corporate level. It's not in their boardrooms. So as mayor, I know how to talk to these people. I know how to work across the aisle to make them understand as how the caucus, how the community goes, is how their business is going to go. The buying power that the LGBTQ plus community has never really been taken to corporate Houston. Explain the partnership, they ought to be here tonight. And let me just emphasize something. I'm coming back to run for mayor only to make a difference. I've had a distinguished career in Austin. I was asked by Houstonians to do this, diverse groups of Houstonians, including the caucus in our community. So you allow me to be mayor. I'm not worried about reelection. I don't mind pissing people off. It's a record of accomplishment, and it would be a shame to waste my experience in a body that respects me, but at the end of the day, they run over me. Particularly if we had time to talk about criminal justice. We need a reentry program. It's a shame to release people from Harris County Jail to the streets of Houston with absolutely no resources. They do the same with inmates and parolees coming out of Huntsville. I've fought for reentry. I do a lot of it on a small scale myself, but the city ought to meet parolees at the city limits and make sure they have health care, housing, and a job opportunity. I will have the best reentry program in the nation if I'm allowed to run the city.
So we're going to give you 1 minute to do your closing statement. When the little binger goes off, their time is up. So if you want, go ahead and make your pitch.
Thank you, Brad. Thank everyone that's taking their time to be involved. I think all of us are public servants. Everyone I'm looking at right now is a public servant, whether you ever are on a ballot or not. And I think someday we're going to be judged. What did you do with your public service? And I hope everyone in here has a good record for making a difference. I believe my public service, starting at 22, when all my friends were at ball games and fraternity parties, I wanted to make a difference. I was working in the food stamp office when I saw Dr. Murray's new map of Houston for legislative districts. It had Northwest Houston, my church, my high school, Walter, and I knew they drew that one for me. So I went home and told my parents I wanted to run for the legislature to make a difference. That same passion and commitment exists today. I wanted to bring my experience and my contacts to Houston to make a difference. That's the only reason I'm running. I wasn't asked to run by other politicians. I was running, and I am running to make a difference and make this great city and great people even greater. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So we're going to take 2 minutes to reset. We're going to bring our new moderators up, I think. So we'll switch off. So this is the time to stretch your legs, go to the restroom, and we'll be back in 2 minutes. Thank y'all.
Do you mind if I get your plug real quick?
No, that's fine.
I just got on
Where's-
on YouTube and saw the old one, so I want to delete it. I don't think anybody's waiting. Robert, how do you
Hello. I was gonna come say hi, but I didn't want to
Well,
trip
she
over
can't
the thing.
because I was like, I'm not fucking this up. I literally turned and I was like, what is he doing here? Why is he using it?
Just being for this.
Somebody asked us if it was like being broadcast. I was like, Equality Texas got us every time.
We did it. Not many people are watching, but it'll be there.
I had a like,
Yeah.
what have y'all been doing for a year? But we're about to start doing who knows how long.
Yeah.
It was
Good. That's good. I'm like about a 3-hour drive. I'm barely present. Yeah. Today has been yeah, much thanks to Sadie and then for getting all that stuff for the
Hello. Hello. Hey, folks. If somebody is missing a set of car keys, Miranda in the Equality Texas shirt in the lobby has them. Maybe you'll get a free car out of the deal. But Miranda's wearing a blue Equality Texas shirt, blondish hair, standing out in the lobby area. I did want to give, I know we had a couple of candidates here earlier running for different offices. I'm not going to hand them the mic because we don't do that. But what I will do is say, if you are a candidate running for office on the ballot, either in the city elections or in the upcoming primary election/general election, if you will stand up, and if you stand, I'll point to you and then just call out your names and what you're running for, and folks will know who you are. Sure.
Hey y'all, I'm Molly Cook. I use she, her pronouns. I am proudly out and bisexual and would be the first woman to be in State Senate District 15 and the only working nurse in the Texas legislature. And I'm super excited to be Molly Cook running for Texas Senate District 15 in March of 24. Thank y'all.
Candidate with a baby.
Yes, how are you? My name is Lillian Alexander. I'm a working mom, and this is Blake. I am here in Harris County running for family court judge, and I'll be on the ballot next March. I would be so happy for your support because one thing about it, families are hurting. I know that, but families also are feeling joy, but we need a family court that gets voted. So thank you so much for having me, you guys. Lillian Alexander, and if you don't remember, you'll remember Blake, the baby.
Any other candidates running for office? Okay. And then just another thing that I was asked to announce, there were several pieces of legislation that go into effect that were passed at the legislature. They go into effect tomorrow, or were scheduled to go into effect tomorrow. One of those was Senate Bill 14, which was a healthcare ban for trans kids getting access to life-saving healthcare. The ACLU filed a lawsuit. The district court did grant an injunction to stop that bill from going into effect. However, the Attorney General's office did an appeal to the Texas Supreme Court, and they will allow that bill to go into effect starting tomorrow. The fight on that is not over, so I'm going to lead with that one because it was the worst news. But we do have some good news. So SB 12, which was the bill targeting drag performers in Texas, did get a temporary injunction, and it looks like that will hold, so that bill will not go into effect hopefully tomorrow. And HB 900, which was a book ban, was also halted by a court, so it shouldn't go into effect tomorrow. So the caveat for all of those is it's Texas, so we don't know how long those things will hold, but we encourage everybody to celebrate the small victories when we have them because those victories help set precedent. And if you could just give a hand to the legal teams at the ACLU and all the plaintiffs who stepped up to help fight those bills. So we're gonna switch up our moderators now. So I'm gonna ask Emmett and Landon to come on up. I'm sorry, Emmett, or Landon and Brandon, excuse me. Sorry. I looked at Emmett, he's sitting on and they will introduce themselves and we'll get started with the next round of candidates.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brianna Jenkins. Pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a board member at the Mahogany Project. I'm also a national organizer at Lavender Rights Project, and I am a civil rights attorney, and I live here in Houston.
My name is Landon Ritchie, he, him. I am senior at U of H. I have a classmate in the crowd. And I'm also policy associate with the Transgender Education Network of Texas. And we are going to invite up Councilman Robert Gallegos.
Good evening.
Okay, first, we would like you to tell us who you are and why you believe you're the best person to represent the city of Houston as our next mayor.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this invitation. Again, my name is Councilmember Robert Gallegos. I represent District I. I've been on city council for the last 10 years. I've worked with two mayors, Mayor Parker as well as Mayor Turner. My parents arrived from Mexico as young teenagers. They immigrated into the East End, escaping the Mexican Revolution with their families. They met, they got married, they had 7 children. I'm the youngest of the 7. I'm proud to be the first openly gay Latino to run for office in the state of Texas and get elected in 2013. I have an older brother who is also gay. But when he was 21 years old back in the 1970s, he decided to move to LA because of Texas, because of Houston. He got married. Back when, of course, it was legal to get married in California. And he was married. He was with his partner and husband for 30 plus years. He lost his husband the year right before COVID. But he's still in LA. He's 71 years old today. I'm proud of being on city council again for 10 years. I was there for HERO. I worked with Mayor Parker. In regards to HERO, I was actually instrumental. Mayor Parker initially was placing HERO where it would apply to small businesses with 50 or more employees. I reached out to Mayor Parker. I asked her, could we lower that? And she said, Council Member, would you be willing to place an amendment on council? And I said, yes, I will. So I did, and we were able to lower it to 25 employees and more for small businesses. So again, I'm the only openly gay council member on city council for the last 4 years. And, proud of what we've been able to accomplish as a council member, the only Latino on city council for the last 8 years as well.
So, starting with our first question, the city of Houston has a strong mayor form of government, making the mayor the most powerful political actor in our city. Studies show that actions that begin at the local level have the potential to influence other jurisdictions and can translate to changes at, excuse me, can has the potential to influence other jurisdictions and can translate to changes at the state and federal levels in a phenomenon called the snowball effect. Municipalities that pass policies to better serve the LGBTQ plus community members can serve as case studies for policymakers in other cities or counties. Do you have any special initiatives that you plan to propose to prioritize the transgender and LGBT plus community?
Well, as the next mayor, again, being an openly gay council member, and being, of course, an openly gay mayor, I will be working with the LGBTQ community and making sure that any policies that everyone in this city will be represented. Again, we're the most diverse city in the nation here in the city of Houston. So I will be working with my directors on the city. We have 23 directors. I want to make sure that they are all aware that we will be hiring, for example, transgender, gay, openly gay individuals in our city. And that's what I will be doing as the next mayor.
So the City of Houston budget, and all cities have a set budget, which includes specific amounts allocated for different resources, like housing and the health department. There are major cities in the United States that specifically allocate resources in their budget for LGBTQ plus programs and resources. For example, City of Philadelphia allocated $2 million, City of New York, 2.8 million, San Francisco, 5.4 million. How will you use your power to help address the health and vitality of transgender and LGBTQ plus residents and programs here in Houston in the city budget that you, as the mayor, write?
Well, again, I've been on city council for 10 years, and various times throughout each of the years, we have on the agenda where we are approving housing for individuals with HIV, individuals with AIDS. So as the next mayor, I will continue that program to make sure that we do put money in for housing for the LGBTQ community as well.
So the LGBTQ plus Victory Fund helps to elect openly LGBTQ plus candidates to public office. The theory of change is that when members of our community are elected, they help push progressive policies forward. We've seen this play out across the country as more than 300 openly LGBTQ plus candidates were elected in the last election cycle, many here in Texas. The LGBTQ plus Victory Institute also has political appointments project connecting folks to boards, commissions, and other programs within government. When we have a seat at the table, we are able to drive conversations about our community and advance policies that enhance quality of life for all people, not just LGBTQ plus people. Are there any LGBTQ plus people that you have identified to potentially serve in your administration to address the issues facing LGBTQ plus people, particularly transgender and gender expansive people?
Thank you so much for that question. Again, being an openly gay council member for the last 10 years, to have my signs when I ran the very first time back in 2013 spray painted with the word joto, which means fag, in the East End, in District I. And then I ran 2 other times after that, and then my signs were being marked with gay. Got a little nicer, instead of fact. Now I'm running for mayor. Now my signs are getting a big red X across them. And I've got 20-some signs next to my shed to prove it if you want to see them. So yes, as the next mayor, I will be there and I will make sure that our LGBTQ community is represented at City Hall, in our boards and commissions, and even in our directorships or assistant directors to our 23 different departments that we have in the city of Houston. Again, being an openly gay council member and not getting the caucus endorsement is sad. Being the openly gay council member and having a record standing for our community and the victory fund is nowhere to be found is sad. But again, I'm a proud, openly gay Latino man, and I will have individuals at City Hall that represent our community.
Thank you very much. In 2023, this year, the Texas legislature passed SB 17, which bans DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion offices, programs, and training at Texas public universities. One of the effects of this bill is that LGBTQ plus resource centers at publicly funded schools are now being forced to close. Today is the last day of operation, or the last day that the University of Houston's LGBTQ plus resource center will be open in operation, which has been serving students since 2010, and the Pride Center at Texas Southern University, which has been a mainstay for campus, on campus for LGBTQ plus students over the years, is also hanging in the balance. Recently, the Rice Queer Resource Center extended an open invitation to all Houston college students to utilize their resources, since as a privately funded university, they can avoid the impacts of SB 17. How will you use the resources of the mayor's office to assist in creating support systems for queer students who no longer have them at public universities here in Houston?
Excuse me, as the next mayor, what I will be doing is working with, of course, our Human Resources Department, our Office of Business Opportunities Department in the city of Houston, to make sure that we are able to provide assistance for the LGBTQ community in regards to these offices and what have you being closed at state universities. Of course, it's because of our leadership in Austin. It's because of the current Republican platform of hate speeches. Again, I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. Just recently, I voted not once, not twice, but 3 times opposing the RNC 2028 convention coming to the city of Houston. I mentioned it a year ago when Houston First came asking city council to approve them to go out and try to secure this convention. I voted no. And I made my comments why? Because of the hate speeches. Councilmember Kamen, she also voted no. So both of us voted no a year ago. A few weeks ago at Houston First, which I sit on the board, they were talking that they were going to take it back to city council now that we are one of 3 cities that were in the finals to be approved as the city for the convention in 2028. I mentioned at Houston First, I voted no, and I said I will vote no at council the following week. When it came to council, I made my speech again, because they're anti-LGBTQ, they're criminalizing parents of transgender children, they're putting razor wire at the border, they're anti-immigrant. I mentioned the 49 individuals that were killed at the Pulse Club due to the fact that the only reason why they were murdered was because of who they chose to love. I mentioned the 23 Latinos that were gunned down at the Walmart in El Paso just because of the color of their skin. All this is brought up by the hate speeches from the current Republican platform. And that's why I voted no, because the city of Houston should not be paying taxpayers' money for a convention to be in one of our facilities, and I'm proud of that vote.
You are currently the only openly LGBTQ plus city council member in Houston, and you've served on city council since 2013. Other than voting in support of the Houston Equal Rights Amendment Ordinance in 2014, can you name an accomplishment or advancement that you have championed in your time in City Hall for the LGBTQ plus community?
Well, again, I'd like to point out again, voting no 3 times in regards to not bringing the convention, the RNC convention to Houston in 2028. After the Pulse, shooting, massacre, I read off all the names of the 49 that were murdered at one of our council meetings. After the Pulse massacre, I joined the candlelight vigil on the steps of City Hall, and I was asked to speak, and I spoke out and said, we've come a long way, and we're not going to let this affect us to where we're going to be going backwards. We're going to continue moving forward. So I've spoken up. I know that those that are running for office, they're saying, well, when they become mayor, they're going to do this. Well, I've been there. I'm you. I am you. And granted, the caucus didn't endorse me. I came in 3rd. The Victory Fund hasn't reached out to me. They say, well, we're going to see how much money you can raise. Really? I've spoken up. I fought for us. And I will continue to fight for us as the next mayor.
So you've spoken about sort of the impact of violence on our community and how you yourself have spoken out against acts of hate in your position of power. Equality Texas and others in the state, ADL, identified more than 350 incidents in an 11-month period beginning in June 2022. Including several incidents of hate-fueled protests here in Houston against our communities. In Texas, there were more than 140 anti-LGBTQ plus bills filed in the last legislative session, and there have been more than 150 incidents targeting LGBTQ plus people this year alone. Houston has one of the largest populations of trans people in the country, but that community is often not as visible because of fear for our safety and not wanting to be targeted by extremist forces. What would you say to those Houstonians who are fearful to be visible, and what efforts can the mayor of Houston make to ensure that every resident in our city is able to live free from discrimination and feel safe in Houston?
With Houston being the most diverse city in this nation, and me, again, being an openly gay Latino, so, I mentioned Pulse, the massacre at Pulse because, targeting gays. I mentioned Walmart, the targeting of Walmart because of people just having brown skin, basically. So as the next mayor, I'm going to make sure that everyone will be at the table in regards to having a voice. Having a voice in this city as the most diverse city in this nation. Everyone needs to be represented. To know that, again, that I ran for city council back in 2013, and I was a community leader for 30-some years. I was an unknown. I was an unknown person. That's what really irritates me, is that I was active for 30-some years in the East End as a community leader. I decided to run for mayor. I was told, openly gay Latino running for mayor, 60-some% of the population is Hispanic. Well, here I am. 10 years later. 4 years ago, when I ran the last time, I almost won by 68% of the vote. I proved to everyone. I can be an openly gay Latino, and I can do one hell of a job.
Thank you for answering. So we have about 3 minutes left. So we want you to feel free to make a brief closing statement and tell people where they can learn more about your campaign and just again with your final minutes explaining why people should vote for you to become Houston's next mayor.
Well, thank you. Well, first of all, let me clear something up, because I know that I've been hearing it out there saying, why did you wait for so long? Why did you wait so long? Well, there's a state law where if you're a city or an elected official from a municipality and you have a 4-year term, that if you say you're running for an office a year and 30 days before you leave office, you have to resign. So therefore, I could not say anything publicly, even though it was in the back of my mind that I might run for mayor. People were saying, I hear rumors, you're running for mayor. I would just smile, couldn't say anything. Had to wait till December 25th of this past year to finally say something, and I didn't have to resign. So I'm at a disadvantage. So that's why I don't have the money in the bank. When you have a state senator running for mayor and doesn't have to resign, you have a congresswoman running for mayor that doesn't have to resign, guess what? When I'm making my phone calls to try to raise money, people are scared. They're scared to give me money because they don't want their name on my campaign finance report because they don't want any retaliation if the state senator remains a state senator or the congresswoman remains a congresswoman. That's what they're telling me. So it's not because I can't raise money. I've raised money in the past. I've been in office for 10 years. But when the playing field is not fair, it's hard. And I say that not to get pity, but just to say, I'm you. I am you, and I'm proud. I've been in office for 10 years. I have an older brother that's gay. So if you want somebody else to say, if I'm mayor, I'm going to do this, I can tell you when I am mayor, I will do it. Because I know who we are. I have a record. Please go to voterobertgallegos.com. I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish these past 10 years. And thank you for this time.
We're gonna take another 2-minute break, stretch your legs, get some water, use the restroom. We'll be back.
You can do it. I'm surprised it also seems like some people have left. I mean, I didn't hear
Oh my God. No, I know, but I'm saying like. Imagine how it's.
I feel like if I did live there, I'd probably maximize, really get like a good place, like a townhome.
Hi, y'all. I'm not running for office. Just want to make that really clear. I am here to make an announcement, though, that MJ Khan, who is a person running for city council, for mayor, not city council, well, a part of city council, did not indicate to us that he was running late or any communication of that sort. So he is what we're calling like a no-call, no-show to the forum. It is unfortunate because we would love to learn more about him, but that is the message I have to deliver. And so we currently are waiting to see if our last candidate will arrive. And if you give us just a couple more minutes, I might have another announcement.
Good to see you. You live here, yes. I know, right? It's just like, we're all always in the same place. Yes. I actually learned the other day that the convention's radioactive. Have you heard this? That Sunset Granny has like not an immune target, but it like has some sort. It's like only in this one spot has some sort of radiation. I think that explains the results we're getting from the How are you? Oh, I saw a picture of you and
Yeah, this was interesting. So I wish it was recorded. I don't really have commentary. There's actually the way like the differences. Three. I know. So I had like 3 pages worth of stuff. Like, no, I think that's what I did. And there was just a lot more. Yeah, which was interesting. And I think just there were people and so speech and social series. I was just glad they couldn't ask any questions.
Well, better than
Yeah, it was good. I don't know. I'm so lucky. I was number 16. Nice. So,
got to
good. Watch at home.
So, we have our candidate here, so we will get started. So, first, we will have you introduce yourselves.
Is it on? Yes. First of all, good evening. I'm delighted to be here at the Pride Forum. It's good to be able to travel thousands of miles to get here. It shows that this is the place to be. Sheila Jackson Lee. I served in the United States Congress. Previous to that, I'm a proud member of the Houston City Council, working for or working with, but sometimes the mayors rarely work you. Mayor Kathy Whitmire and Mayor Bob Lanier, as an at-large member, getting from them major responsibilities. I'm probably one of the few members that passed a gun law or gun ordinance under Bob Lanier after a piled up chamber, people opposing it. And I have been a fighter for change since that, previously a municipal court judge. I am now the chair, ranking member of the crime subcommittee. I've been on the judiciary committee for 28 years, as well been on the budget committee and homeland security. My vision is to have a vision for the city of Houston, an inclusive vision, a vision of empowerment, a vision of change, a vision of making a difference, and not seeing anyone in their distinctive and rich difference as being unempowered and to be treated without dignity. This city will be a city where everyone has the ability to be respected and that the services of the city will be for everyone.
Thank you for answering that question. So I will start with our first question. In 2023, you filed House Resolution 4960 alongside 15 of your colleagues. HR 4960 is also called the China Gibson Stop the Transgender Murder Epidemic of 2023. The bill has been referred to the House Judiciary Committee. However, the chairman of the committee is Representative Jim Jordan, a prolific anti-LGBTQ+ lawmaker. On an issue this important, what concrete steps are you taking to ensure that HR 4960 gets a committee hearing so that a national spotlight can be focused on the violence transgender people are currently facing, especially given the heightened political rhetoric being leveled at members of the LGBTQ+ community?
There is a much larger body of support for trans persons in the United States Congress. This legislation was supported and is supported by almost every caucus. I would say every caucus. I'm a member of the Equality Caucus, Hispanic Caucus, Congressional Black Caucus, the Democratic Caucus, the API Caucus. And so what happens when we go back in session, we are Democrats and Republicans, even though we're not in the majority. The idea of this is a commission to do the obvious, to study the violence against trans and in particular women who happen to be African American who are trans. And so along with the condemnation of parent and healthcare, which we have rejected in Washington, I truly believe that if nothing else, we'll make a large noise. One of the options is for the president to establish the commission. I am seeking for a commission to be established for HR 40, the Commission to Study Slavery and Reparations. An executive order could establish this commission, 13 members, $10 million a year to operate it, and it could begin its work. So the answer is not to give up. I'm very proud of the original co-sponsors because they represent every aspect of the caucus, that's the Democratic caucus, and they were enthusiastic when they signed on to co-sponsor. One of my dear friends and colleagues, Congresswoman Presley out of Boston, is certainly a person who strongly fights for what she believes in. Chairman Grijalva out of Arizona. These are the kinds of sponsors that we have that will make a difference in fighting for this legislation. And I guess the lead sponsor is Sheila Jackson Lee, and I will fight for this legislation.
We appreciate your response.
And well, I'm not sure if I've been silenced, but I welcome Equality Texas to be able to be an agitator for this. Obviously, we'll be asking the Human Rights Campaign and others that work in the congressional arena to be helpful to us. Thank you.
The city of Houston has a strong mayor form of government, making the mayor the most powerful political actor in our city. Studies show that actions that begin at the local level have the potential to influence other jurisdictions and can translate to changes at the state and federal levels in a phenomenon called the snowball effect. Municipalities that pass policies to better serve LGBTQ plus members can serve as a case study for policymakers in other cities or counties. Do you have any special initiatives that you plan to propose to prioritize the transgender and LGBTQ plus community?
Absolutely. First of all, I've indicated that I want to have a director of LGBTQ affairs in my office that will collectively focus on all levels of the community. They will be in my ear. They will be an expert. Obviously, that director may choose, and I would welcome an advisory committee so that I'm close to the community. But there are other ways as well. When I was on the Houston City Council, I saved the housing for people living with AIDS money. It was languishing. It was not being used. I helped to collaborate and urge the mayor that I was working with, one, to establish an individual, an LGBTQ plus male to head the program and to begin to help various programs from St. Thomas Street Clinic to the housing for various sites where housing was or not. We gave grants out. We put housing in neighborhoods where people said, not in my neighborhood. It was a very striking statement about what can be done with advocacy and passion. So housing is going to be very important. Legacy has done housing, Hope Housing. We want to expand the housing for individuals living with AIDS. We want to expand housing that is affordable for the community. And as we do that, it will be mixed housing, but we just want to make sure that is the case. We want to ensure that when cases come about from assault, sexual assault, murder, that our police departments, as I believe they are more sensitive and those cases are pursued. We don't want China Gibson to happen one more day. And so we'll have a sensitive response to crimes against the community. And I guess finally, I will be standing by families because this is a very tough state. And as you know, the families of trans children, many of them have fled. It breaks my heart. But as mayor, you can have a bully pulpit, and I will stand by these families for them to be able to have access to health care unimpacted by state law, and really seek to find out what remedies we have in the federal government to protect these families. Families have the right to deal with trans health for their children. And that's will be the attitude that I will have in the city.
So we have about 2 minutes left, and I really want to make sure that you get to answer this. So I want you to feel free to make a brief closing statement and tell the audience where they can learn more information about your campaign.
Well, and I like show and tell, so this is the China Gibson bill with the co-sponsors, and it really is a very strong list of members of Congress of whom you would name. I do want to mention Mark Takano, who is a very strong member dealing with veterans, but also dealing with the Equality Caucus. I want to make sure that I do that. First of all, again, thank you for the moment. I hope my shortness of my moment does not indicate the shortness of my passion. As I close, I want to make sure that I tell you that the city health department and housing department will be invigorated with making sure that there are particular services and resources that fit the community. Many of you know that the AIDS clinic has been moved to Quinton Meeks, a more updated and modern facility. I'll be working with the county. I believe in working with the county. I have very good state relationships, county relationships, and nobody knows the federal government better than I do. And so I will seek resources. I will seek the resources that are necessary to uplift the community. My closing is that my passion has been for a very long time. Look up your history books and look up Ray Hill. We started back with Ray Hill, talking both about persons who were returning from incarceration, but also living in this life as long as he had done. In addition, I have sat by the bed of those dying from AIDS whose family members would not come to them. They were my friends, and I sat with them. And so I've seen the starkness. I was in Washington when the Ryan White treatment dollars were announced in a very small, crowded room with Senator Kennedy and the senator from Utah. And so I have been up close and personal. And I guess my most personal statement is about my passion for the community, about my refusal to step back, my refusal to be weakened by those who would be opposed, but also having the strategy to be able to pass an equality ordinance or act in this city. And the way you do it is you bring people together. But one of my most powerful moments was one when I named one of our hate crimes bill after David Ritchie, who unfortunately took his life. It was a young man who was sodomized. And I wrote legislation. He even testified before our committee. I still remember him to this day. And then to be able to meet Matthew Shepard's mother. Obviously, that was one of the most vile and violent crimes that one could imagine. It set the tone for what the community was facing, that this was serious, that people were willing to kill. And we became, at least she thought that she came to a person's office that more than cared. And I am the only member that is in her book, Sheila Jackson Lee. And so I have credentials that hopefully will show both my heart, my intellect, and my tenacity. I want this city to be an open city. And I believe that we will do better business. The economy will be stronger. I believe people will move to this community. Corporations will move to this community because many turn their back when they realize that we don't fully support reproductive rights, that we don't support LGBTQ+, and that we're not open to the talent of all people. I want Houston to pop. I want us to have an entertainment center with short documentaries and other new things, as well as a budget, as well as dealing with police and fire and public safety and crime and potholes and permitting. I know these are not the issues that we've discussed, but I feel very confident that I will have the people around me to lead this city. And that's why I rushed as fast as I could to not be closed out of this forum, because I want you to know who I am, who my heart is, and what I will do as a mayor of the city of Houston. This is Sheila Jackson Lee, and it's Sheila Jackson Lee. It's www.SheilaForHouston.com. www.SheilaForHouston.com. I want you to know this is Sheila Jackson Lee, and I want to take this city into the future. Come working with me.
Thank you all so very much.
Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Just a reminder, key dates for the election. October 10th is the last day to register to vote for municipal elections. October 23rd is the first day of early voting. Vote early if you can. November 3rd is the last day of early voting. And November 7th is election day. Please go out and vote. Local elections matter so, so much. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.